I'm Caleb Reed, 25 years old, raised my whole life on the banks of the Tallapoosa River at the edge of Marrowbend, a place strangers rarely find and locals seldom leave. I've never thought of myself as special. Just an ordinary fisherman, living with my mother in an old wooden house nestled among reeds and forest shadows. We didn't have much, but the river always gave me fish, and the moon always lit my way home each night. That night was like any other. The wind from the forest carried a damp, earthy scent, brushing my skin and sending shivers down my spine. A crescent moon hung lazily on the horizon, casting a faint glow over the still water. I pushed my weathered wooden boat into the river, rowing toward the massive oak the villagers called Devil's Eye. The name sounded silly, but I grew up with it, an ancient tree with branches stretching out like giant fingers, ready to snatch anyone who got too close. As I cast my net, I paused for a moment to take it all in. The air was unnaturally still. No crickets chirped, no owls hooted, just the occasional splash of my paddle and the steady thump of my heart in my chest. That's when I heard it, a faint, whispering sound, soft as a lullaby, coming from the other side of the forest. I strained to listen. Maybe it was just the wind, but the voice, it felt like a call, weak yet persistent. I turned my head. And then I saw her, a white figure standing motionless under the oak near the water's edge. Her long dress touched the ground, black hair covering her face. The moonlight reflected her shape on the water, distorted, swaying as if it were breathing. I held my breath, squinting to see clearly, but the moment I blinked, the figure vanished. No sound, no trace, as if she'd never been there. I stood frozen for a few seconds, then yanked up my net and rowed back, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the paddle. A cold breeze grazed the back of my neck, like an invisible hand brushing against me, slow and chilling. Each stroke felt farther away, the moonlight dimmed, and the oak loomed behind me, towering like a black gate to a place not meant for the living. When I reached shore, I didn't look back, I didn't dare. The next morning, I told my mother everything. Her eyes narrowed when I mentioned the white figure under the oak. She pressed her hand to my forehead, muttering that I must be exhausted. "At night, the mind plays tricks, Caleb," she said. "No sane person sees ghosts." I wanted to believe her, but my hands were still cold, still trembling, and the image of that white figure, it was burned into my eyes, vivid every time I blinked. By noon, the rumor had spread through the village. Old women at the market whispered the name Lillian Grace. Some said she'd returned, others said her spirit never left. The village was small. Old stories faded quickly but were easily stirred by a gust of wind or a glance into the dark. That same day, Noah Hayes arrived in Marrowbend. I'd never met him before, but my mother knew his aunt, Eleanor Hayes. Noah had lived in Mobile, but after a horrific accident took his family and one of his legs, he moved to live with his aunt in a wooden house deep in the forest across the river. They said he needed peace to recover. I wasn't sure Marrowbend was as peaceful as he thought. On Noah's first night in the village, the moon hung full and unnaturally round in the sky. He hobbled on crutches along the dirt path to the river, seeking cool air and quiet to help him sleep. Instead, he found something else. Under the oak, the one nobody liked to name, a girl stood. Her white dress reached her feet. Black hair, long to her waist, swayed lightly in the breeze. Noah thought at first she was lost. But as he approached, she turned, smiling. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Then she turned away, stepping slowly into the forest, and vanished. The next morning, Noah told Elena over tea by the window. When he mentioned the oak, her hand gripped the teapot handle so tightly it nearly shattered. "You shouldn't go there," she said, her voice cold and firm. "Especially at night, it's no place for the living." Noah didn't ask more, but he knew she was hiding something. On his second night, in the dead of night, Noah was reading when he heard a knock, 3 sharp, hollow raps. He opened the door. No one was there. Just a trail of mud stretching from the doorstep to the grass, fading toward the forest. The mud bore the clear imprint of small, barefoot prints, leading straight to the oak. July nights in Black Hollow dragged on endlessly, heavy with fog and an unnatural silence. After that first night on the rickety boat, Caleb began to change. He spoke less. His face looked sleep-deprived, eyes shadowed with dark circles, gaze vacant as if searching for something he couldn't name. His mother, Edna, thought at first it was fatigue from a long trip, but as nights passed, Caleb grew stranger. He sat for hours by the window, staring at the lake, muttering unconsciously. Nightmares took hold. He woke screaming in the dead of night, drenched in cold sweat, calling a girl's name. "Lillian, don't pull me down." One night during a fit of delirium, Edna rushed into his room to find him thrashing on the floor, body convulsing, eyes rolled back. He whispered hoarsely, "She's in the water, waiting for me, blood in her eyes, blood in her mouth." Panicked, Edna called neighbors for help. By the time they arrived, Caleb was calm, breathing heavily, eyes empty as if unaware of what had happened. Meanwhile, across the village, another felt the presence of something not of this world. Mason Cole, a middle-aged drunk living quietly in a rotting wooden house behind the pine forest, was the first to mention Lillian before Noah or Caleb knew her story. Mason was known for his drinking and rambling, dismissed by most. But that night he staggered into the village in a panic, shouting like a wounded animal. He claimed he'd seen a girl sitting in the middle of the village road on his way back from the bar. Her hair hung over her face, white dress smeared with mud, and her eyes, red as embers, stared straight at him. I swear to God, it was Lillian, it was her. I've seen those eyes before, 10 years ago." The villagers shoved him into a corner of the bar and ignored him. But his ravings reached Elena, the old woman who kept the village's faded records, the only one who remembered Lillian Grace clearly. Elena called Noah to her home, hands trembling as she flipped through yellowed papers pointing to an old photo. A young girl with a pale smile, dark hair gently curled, eyes sad yet strangely captivating. Lillian Grace. Disappeared 10 years ago. No body was ever found. The last person seen with her was Mason Cole. Noah went still. Lillian, the name Caleb muttered in his sleep. The name Noah had seen in his grandmother's old journal, a faint line. "Lillian, if she returns, don't let her near the water again." Curious and unnerved, Noah dug deeper. He scoured old news clippings, questioned the village elders, trying to connect his family to Lillian's disappearance. The more he learned, the more things felt wrong. Those who knew her dodged questions. Some records about Lillian were torn or missing from the village library. Noah grew uneasy. For several nights he felt watched. While reading in the library, he saw a white shape flash past the window. In the kitchen, washing dishes, he heard soft footsteps behind him, but turned to find only darkness. Walking the long hallway to the bathroom, the lights flickered, casting dim light on a trail of water on the floor. The appearing from nowhere. One stormy night, Noah glanced out his window and saw a white figure standing silently in the backyard. Her long hair swayed in the wind, her white dress clinging as if she'd risen from the lake. He rubbed his eyes. She was gone. The most haunting moment came that night in the bathroom. Tired, Noah was washing his face when he looked into the mirror. His heart stopped. In the reflection, not just him. Behind him stood a girl. Long black hair, eyes wide and unblinking, cracked lips oozing blood. Noah spun around nothing. The room was empty. Just the steady drip of water, cold and relentless. He looked back at the mirror, nothing unusual now. But on the glass, where her reflection had been, a small handprint lingered, as if someone had touched it from inside. Noah couldn't sleep. The wind howled through the old eaves, whispering his name. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blood-filled eyes of the girl in the white dress, standing silently under the oak, her voice echoing in his mind. "Thomas don't love me." But he wasn't Thomas, he was Noah Hayes, so why was she calling him that? One foggy morning, Noah rifled through Eleanor's old family documents. In a faded album, he paused at a photo of a young, tall man with a kind smile. Scrawled in black ink on the back, Thomas Hayes, summer 2015. Thomas, his uncle, missing along with his girlfriend one autumn night exactly 10 years ago. Noah's throat tightened. He'd never known his uncle had a lover, let alone vanished with one. Eleanor never mentioned it. But if this was the man Lillian loved, was she mistaking Noah for Thomas, or deliberately pulling him in? Noah confronted Eleanor with the photo. She dodged at first, but under his insistence, she bowed her head, voice trembling. Yes, that girl was Lillian Grace. She and Thomas were secretly dating, but someone wasn't happy. One night, they both vanished. No bodies were found. People thought it was an accident, or they ran away, but I know better. Noah held his breath. Who did something to them? Mason Cole, Eleanor whispered. He had a thing for Lillian. Drunk, jealous, I saw blood on his shirt that day. But no one dared speak. No proof, no bodies. The police gave up. The village forgot. But now she's back. Noah felt the ground shift beneath him. The pieces scrambled. Lillian, Thomas, Mason, the curse. That night, he dreamed of Lillian again. She stood under the oak, hair swaying in the wind, eyes locked on him. Thomas, you let me die, but now you can make it right. Noah, he replied, I'm not Thomas. But Lillian didn't listen. She stepped closer, whispering in his ear. Mason must pay. If you don't help me, I'll pull you down like you let me die. Noah woke, drenched in cold sweat. The photo of Thomas lay on the floor, untouched. The next morning, he shared the story with Caleb, who was recovering but still gaunt. Caleb stared, eyes sunken, whispering, I saw her on the boat, blood dripping from her eyes. She said I'm one of them. I don't know what I did, I'm just a fisherman. Noah didn't know what to believe. Reality was warping. That evening in his rotting wooden house, Mason Cole was drunk as usual, but this time he wasn't laughing. He lit candles around the house, clutching a rusty shotgun, muttering as if talking to someone. I know it's you, Lillian. What more do you want? I've paid already. I've lived in hell for 10 years. In every corner, the shadows grew thicker. The lights went out, a soft laugh echoed in the wind. Mason screamed, stumbling outside, staggering down the dirt path to the river. The massive oak loomed under the crescent moon, its shadow stretching like it reached 100 steps. Let me go. I'm begging you, it wasn't on purpose, it was an accident. Mason wailed. No one answered, just the wind and the white figure standing amid the oak's trunk, hair veiling her face. Lillian. Mason collapsed, tears mixing with whiskey and mud. I'm scared, let me go. The oak stirred not from the wind. Vines seemed to crawl along its trunk, slithering down like snakes. They wrapped around Mason's legs, dragging him across the ground. He screamed, thrashing, but it was futile. Lillian said nothing. She hovered in the air, eyes blazing like hellfire, blood dripping from her mouth. No, Mason's final scream, before the vines pulled him into the water, creating a swirling red vortex. The next morning, villagers found his body washed ashore, mangled, covered in strange marks as if gripped by something unseen. And Noah. He woke in darkness, heart pounding. His window was wide open, cold wind flooding in. From afar, a lullaby hummed, wordless, just a mournful melody, echoing from another world, pulling his soul from reality. Mason Cole's body was found at dawn, tangled in reeds near the riverbank. A teenage frog hunter discovered it, nearly fainting at the sight. Mason was purple, eyes rolled back, mouth agape as if still screaming. What shook the village were the bizarre marks around his neck, wrists, and ankles, like he'd been constricted, not by rope, but by vines. Whispers of the curse beneath the oak spread, no longer dismissed. Old women prayed, young people panicked. The police ruled it an accidental drowning, but their eyes held doubt. Caleb was slowly recovering. No more fevers or delirium, but his gaze avoided anything tied to the river. When Alina suggested a walk by the water, he reacted like he'd been burned. No, I'm not going there again. She's still down there. I hear her calling every night. She knows my name. Alina looked at Noah, fear etched on her aged face. And Noah, he was sinking into a strange trance. Nightmares repeated, a wet, dense forest, the stench of mold rising from the earth. He wandered, stopping at the massive oak where Lillian always waited. She was no longer a bloody specter, but a beautiful young woman, skin pale as wax, hair draping her shoulders, eyes clear yet filled with endless sorrow. Thomas, she whispered, you've really come back. Each time he woke, his wrists felt cold, as if someone had held them. Alina, sensing something terrible approaching, decided to leave the village. She packed, bought bus tickets for both, planning to escape this cursed land before it was too late. I can't go, Noah said, clutching the old photo of Thomas and Lillian. I have to go back. If I don't, she won't stop. You're talking like she's real, Alina said, voice trembling. I don't know what I believe anymore, but she killed Mason and nearly took Caleb. She won't stop if there's unfinished business. I have to do something. Alina couldn't hold back tears. She knew Lillian wasn't just a ghost. She was a buried obsession, rising after a decade. And now it demanded blood for blood. Not a single light shone in the village. Doors were bolted, shutters locked, as if everyone sensed this night was a turning point. Noah slipped out quietly, carrying an oil lamp and the old photo. His feet moved as if pulled by an unseen force, lighting him to the oak. The wind howled louder as he approached, but the forest was eerily silent. No insects, no owls, just his heartbeat pounding. The oak stood majestic and deadly, rising into the black sky like an ancient monument. And at its base was Lillian. This time she appeared fully, not tattered, not bloody. She seemed reborn from memory, radiant in an old white dress, barefoot on a bed of moss. Noah, she called. He didn't answer. "Do you remember me, Thomas?" "He's dead," Noah said softly. "I'm not Thomas." "But you're so like him, your eyes, your voice, the way you stand. I've waited so long." Her voice was no longer chilling. It was sad, pleading like a betrayed lover, a soul trapped between worlds. "He promised he wouldn't leave me," she said, tears streaming. "He promised to marry me, to leave this village, but that night he was scared. He left me, Mason killed me, then dragged his body into the river." She choked back a sob. "I just want him to keep his word, just one to take his place, then I can rest. You can help me, Noah, don't leave me again." Noah stepped back, but then he stopped. His eyes met her sorrowful gaze. His heart was heavy, pity, anger, fear, and a strange pull drawn in. Lillian was no longer just a ghost. She was an unclosed piece of the past. A door opened between life and the beyond. "And if I refuse?" he asked. Lillian lowered her head, whispering, "Then I'll keep waiting and keep taking one by one." The air thickened, the wind stilled, the lamp flickered out, silence. Then a soft crack sounded. From the oak's trunk, vines began to crawl across the ground, moving like living creatures. They approached Noah, gently coiling around his ankles, not squeezing, just a probing caress. Lillian reached out, eyes glistening with tears. "Just one step, Noah, one step." Noah stood at the water's edge, the cold wind sweeping through, the river glinting like a mirror. In it, he saw not just himself, but Thomas, younger, standing beside Lillian, smiling. The next morning, Eleanor woke to a chilling silence. The already cold house felt drained of life. She called Noah's name, but no answer came. The back door was ajar, cold night air seeping through, carrying the damp smell of forest earth and river water. She stepped outside, a vague dread rising. Noah's old truck was still parked, but his phone, wallet, and hiking boots were gone. Eleanor called the police. The search lasted days. They followed footprints from the house to the riverbank, then abruptly stopping, as if Noah had vanished into the morning mist. No body, no evidence, just soft dents in the mud and jagged scratches on a nearby oak. An old officer mused, voice heavy. Maybe he fell in the river. The current's been strong lately, or a suicide. That kind of mental strain. No one mentioned the rumors or Lillian. But in the villagers' eyes, Eleanor knew what they thought. Weeks later, Eleanor left the village. She took only a small box containing Lillian Grace's old photo, scraps of a journal, and a broken necklace fragment. Before locking the house for the last time, she glanced at the oak, where it all began, and whispered a prayer or a plea. Months passed, and the village returned to its quiet facade, as if the dark wind had blown through and faded. But people still avoided the oak, and no one ventured to the river after dusk. One night, in thick fog, a fisherman came home late. As he neared the riverbank, he froze. Under the dim moonlight, someone stood motionless by the oak, a tall figure in a black coat, curly hair disheveled. It was Noah. He stood as if he'd never left, eyes empty, staring at the river. Behind him, a slender figure appeared. Lillian Grace, her hand rested lightly on Noah's shoulder, her pale face bearing a smile of possession and satisfaction. No one knew what they shared.